When my 13-year-old son showed up at my front door, my husband was the one who answered. Michael had no idea this kid even existed because I'd been lying to him about it for our entire 5-year relationship. The boy introduced himself as Tyler and said he was looking for his birth mother. Me. I watched my husband's face crumble as he realized I'd been deceiving him every single day we'd been together, including through my entire pregnancy with our daughter. But honestly, I still think I had every right to keep that secret. Let me start from the beginning, because everyone seems to think they understand my story, but they don't. They all act like I'm some kind of monster, but none of them lived through what I did when I was 16 years old in small-town Kansas. My name is Jessica, and yes, I gave birth to a baby boy when I was just a junior in high school. His father was Ryan Collins, the star quarterback who promised me the world and then disappeared the moment I told him I was pregnant. My parents were furious. Not supportive, not understanding, just furious. They said I had ruined their reputation in town and that I needed to fix this mess immediately. The adoption agency in Wichita made it sound so simple and beautiful. They showed me pictures of perfect families with big houses and college degrees. I chose the Williamses. Robert was a doctor, Amanda was a teacher, and they had been trying to have children for 8 years. They seemed like everything I could never be for my baby. When I held him for those 2 days in the hospital, I named him privately in my head, Tyler, after my grandfather. But the Williamses would call him whatever they wanted. The social worker kept telling me how brave I was, how I was giving him the best possible life. I signed those papers because I believed them. After that, I moved to Denver for college. I reinvented myself completely. I never talked about Kansas, never mentioned my family much, and definitely never mentioned Tyler. I became the girl who had her life together, who was focused on her career in marketing, who was fun and carefree. That's how I met Michael at a coffee shop near University of Colorado when I was 24. He was finishing his MBA, and I was working at a startup downtown. He was kind and stable and everything Ryan Collins had never been. Michael came from a good family in Portland. His parents were still married, his sister was a lawyer, and they had Sunday dinners together every week. When Michael started talking about wanting kids someday, about how important family was to him, I felt that familiar panic in my chest. But I also felt something else. Hope. Here was my chance to have the life I had always wanted, the life I deserved after everything I had been through. We dated for 2 years before he proposed. During that entire time, the subject of my past came up exactly 3 times, and each time I managed to redirect the conversation. Michael was respectful. He never pushed when I said I didn't like talking about my teenage years. He assumed I was just embarrassed about being from a small town or something. The first time he asked directly about previous relationships, we were walking along the South Platte River after dinner. He wanted to know if I had ever been in love before. I told him about a college boyfriend named Marcus who didn't exist, made up some story about how we wanted different things. Michael seemed satisfied with that answer. The second time was more dangerous. We were at his parents' house for Thanksgiving, and his mum was showing me photo albums from Michael's childhood. She asked if I had any pictures from when I was younger. I claimed I wasn't sentimental about that stuff, and had thrown most of my old photos away when I moved to Denver. Michael's mom looked a little surprised, but she didn't push it. The third time was the worst. We were engaged by then, planning our wedding, and Michael brought up the idea of inviting my high school friends. He thought it would be fun to reconnect with people from my past. I told him I didn't keep in touch with anyone from Kansas because I had outgrown that phase of my life. Michael looked hurt, but he said he understood that some people preferred to focus on the future rather than the past. I convinced myself that I wasn't really lying. I was just protecting our relationship. Michael fell in love with the woman I had become, not the scared 16-year-old who had made mistakes. Why should I burden him with something that was completely resolved and in the past? Our wedding was perfect. Small ceremony in Denver, Michael's family, a few of my college friends, and my parents who flew in for the weekend. My mum actually complimented me on how well I had done for myself, finding such a good man. For the first time in years, I felt like I had finally gotten it right. The first year of marriage was everything I had hoped for. Michael got a great job at a consulting firm. I was promoted to senior marketing manager, and we bought a beautiful house in Cherry Creek. We talked about starting a family in a few years, after we had traveled and saved more money. I felt so normal, so successful, so far from that scared girl in Kansas. But then Michael started getting more serious about the family planning. He bought books about pregnancy and parenting. He started pointing out cute babies when we were out together. He even suggested we start taking prenatal vitamins and getting healthier in preparation. Every time he brought up having children, I felt this weird combination of excitement and terror. Part of me was thrilled at the idea of being a mother, the right way this time, with a husband and a stable home and everything I had never had before. But another part of me kept thinking about Tyler, wondering what he looked like now, whether he was happy with the Williamses. I started having dreams about a little boy with dark hair like mine calling me Mama. I would wake up in a panic, and Michael would ask if I was okay. I always blamed it on work stress or wedding planning anxiety, even though we had been married for over a year by then. The second year of marriage was when Michael really started pushing the baby conversation. He was 31 and felt like we were running out of time to have the family he had always pictured. I kept finding excuses. My career was at a crucial point. We should travel more first. We needed to save more money. Michael was patient at first, but I could see him getting frustrated. His sister had just had her second baby, and every family gathering became a celebration of parenthood. Michael's parents started making subtle comments about wanting grandchildren. I felt the pressure building from all sides. That's when I made my second big mistake. Instead of telling Michael the truth, I started researching fertility treatments. I figured if I could convince him that we were having trouble getting pregnant naturally, it would buy me more time to figure out how to handle the Tyler situation. I scheduled an appointment with a fertility specialist and told Michael that I wanted to make sure everything was okay before we started trying. He was so supportive and understanding. He held my hand in the waiting room and told me how much he loved me and how we would figure out whatever challenges came up together. The doctor, Dr. Martinez, was thorough and kind. During my consultation, she asked about my medical history, including any previous pregnancies. I sat there for a long moment, looking at Michael, and then I lied. I told her this would be my first pregnancy. Michael squeezed my hand and smiled at me with so much love and trust. That's the moment I should have told him the truth. Instead, I doubled down on the lie. Dr. Martinez ran a bunch of tests and told us that everything looked normal. She gave us advice about timing and nutrition and said to come back if we weren't pregnant within 6 months of trying. Michael was thrilled. He started planning out our future, how we would decorate the nursery, what schools we would consider, how he would teach our kids to play baseball. I kept thinking I would tell him eventually. Maybe after we got pregnant, maybe after the baby was born. I told myself that the past didn't matter as long as our future was happy. I had given Tyler a good life with the Williamses, and now I deserved to have my own good life with Michael. We started trying to get pregnant that spring. Michael was so excited and romantic about the whole thing. He bought me flowers and planned special dates and told me constantly how much he loved me and how perfect our life was going to be. I got pregnant in July. When I saw those 2 lines on the test, I felt pure joy for about 30 seconds. Then reality hit me. I was going to have to navigate this entire pregnancy while hiding the fact that I had done this before. I was going to have to pretend that every symptom was new, that every milestone was a first experience. Michael cried when I told him about the positive test. He called his parents immediately and started making lists of everything we needed to do. He was so happy and proud, and I felt like the worst person in the world for not sharing his pure excitement. The pregnancy was harder than I remembered, maybe because I was older, or maybe because I was carrying around so much guilt. Michael was incredibly attentive. He came to every doctor's appointment, read every pregnancy book, and talked to my belly every night. During one of our ultrasound appointments, the technician casually asked if this was our first baby. Michael answered before I could, telling her yes and squeezing my hand. I smiled and nodded, but I felt sick. I was looking at my second baby on that screen, but I was pretending it was my first. Our daughter Sophia was born in March, and she was perfect. Michael was an amazing father from the moment she arrived. He changed diapers like a pro, sang her lullabies, and took a million pictures. Watching him with Sophia made me love him even more, but it also made me realize how much I had missed with Tyler. Sophia was 6 months old when everything fell apart. I was at home with her while Michael was at work, and someone knocked on our door. I opened it expecting a delivery, but instead I found a tall teenage boy with dark hair and eyes that looked exactly like mine. He asked if I was Jessica Peterson and said he thought I might be his birth mother. I felt like the ground was falling out from under me. This was Tyler. He was 13 years old now, and he had somehow found me. My hands started shaking, and I could barely speak. I told him he had the wrong person, but Tyler had done his research. He had my full name, my address, even my maiden name. He had been working with a search organization for teenagers looking for their birth parents. The Williamses had always been open about his adoption, and when he turned 13, they had supported his search. Tyler said he knew this was probably a shock, but he just wanted to meet me. He explained that he didn't want to disrupt my life or anything, but he wanted to see what I looked like. I stood there in my doorway, holding my 6-month-old daughter, looking at the son I had given away 13 years ago. Sophia started crying and Tyler looked confused. He asked if that was my baby and I nodded. I saw something change in his expression. He had probably assumed I was still childless, that giving him up had been my only experience with motherhood. Now he was realizing that I had gone on to have another child, one I had kept. I told him I couldn't do this right now and asked him not to come back. Tyler looked hurt, but he nodded. He said he understood, but asked if he could just know my name. My real name. The adoption papers just said Jessica, and he wanted to know what his birth mother was called. I whispered that it was Jessica, just Jessica. He smiled a little and said his name was Tyler Williams, but he always wondered what I would have named him. After he left, I sat on my couch holding Sophia and crying. I had never felt so confused and terrified in my life. Tyler seemed like a good kid. Polite, thoughtful, not angry or demanding. But his existence threatened everything I had built with Michael. I didn't tell Michael about Tyler's visit. I told myself I was protecting our family, protecting our happiness. Tyler would probably just go back to Kansas and leave us alone. The Williamses were his real family. He didn't need me. I convinced myself that this was just teenage curiosity, that once he saw me living my real life with my real family, he would understand that there was no place for him here. But Tyler didn't give up. He started sending me messages on social media. Nothing pushy or inappropriate, just updates about his life. He was an honor student, played soccer, wanted to be a veterinarian like his adoptive father, Robert. He sent me pictures from his school plays and soccer games. He told me about his friends and his classes and his dreams for the future. Each message was polite and respectful, but they kept coming with clockwork regularity. Every few days, another glimpse into the life of the son I had given away. I found myself looking forward to his messages even as they terrified me. Tyler was articulate and thoughtful in his writing, asking careful questions about my life while sharing details about his own. He never pressured me for immediate responses or demanded more than I was comfortable giving, but his patience somehow made everything worse. He was being so mature about the situation, so understanding, and it made me feel like a terrible person for wanting him to just disappear. Each message made me feel more guilty and more terrified. Tyler was turning out to be exactly the kind of kid I would have been proud to raise. He was smart and kind and well-adjusted, everything I had hoped for when I chose the Williamses. But he was also a constant reminder of the secret I was keeping from Michael. Every time Tyler mentioned his adoptive parents or his life in Kansas, I was reminded of the choice I had made at 16 and the lies I was telling at 29. I started checking my phone obsessively, both hoping for and dreading Tyler's next message. When he sent pictures of his soccer team winning a championship, I felt a surge of maternal pride that I had no right to feel. When he wrote about getting accepted into his school's advanced science program, I wanted to share the news with Michael, but couldn't explain how I knew this random teenage boy or why I cared about his achievements. Michael started noticing that I was distracted and anxious. He would ask if I was okay, if I was having postpartum depression, if I needed to talk to someone. I kept insisting I was fine, just tired from the new baby. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here was my husband, being supportive and caring, offering to help me through what he thought was a difficult adjustment to motherhood, while I was lying to him about the fact that this wasn't my first experience with having a baby. I became skilled at deflecting Michael's concerns, changing the subject whenever he tried to probe deeper into my mood. I blamed my distraction on work stress, on lack of sleep, on the normal challenges of caring for an infant. Michael accepted my explanations because he trusted me, which only made my guilt worse. Every time he looked at me with love and concern, I felt like I was betraying him all over again. The breaking point came when Sophia was 8 months old. Michael was working from home that day, taking conference calls in his office while I managed Sophia's feeding and nap schedule. It was supposed to be a normal Tuesday, the kind of quiet domestic day that I had once treasured but now felt suffocating under the weight of my secrets. Tyler showed up at our door again without warning. Michael answered the door while I was upstairs changing Sophia's diaper, and I heard his voice drifting up from the entryway. Polite, friendly, asking if he could speak with me about something important. I froze on the changing table, Sophia squirming beneath my suddenly trembling hands, as I realized that my two worlds were about to collide in the worst possible way. I heard voices downstairs and came down to find Michael talking to a teenage boy in our living room. My heart stopped when I saw Tyler sitting on our couch, looking nervous but determined. He had grown in the months since I'd last seen him. Taller, more confident, but still unmistakably my son with those dark eyes that matched my own. Michael was being his usual gracious self, offering Tyler something to drink and making small talk, while clearly trying to figure out why this teenager was asking for me. Michael called out and said this young man claimed he knew me. He was looking for someone. Tyler looked at me with those familiar eyes, and I knew he wasn't going to protect my secret anymore. He had been patient for months, reaching out through messages I mostly ignored, but now he wanted answers. There was a determination in his posture that reminded me of myself at his age, that same stubborn persistence that had gotten me through my pregnancy and the adoption process. I could see Michael trying to piece together the situation, his analytical mind working through the puzzle of why a teenage boy from Kansas would be sitting in our Denver living room asking for his wife. Tyler was being respectful, but firm, clearly prepared for this conversation in a way that I definitely was not. Tyler greeted me carefully and said he was hoping we could talk. Michael looked between us, clearly confused. He asked if we knew each other and mentioned that Tyler had been trying to get in touch with me about something important. The concern in Michael's voice was genuine. He thought he was helping facilitate a conversation between me and someone I knew, not realizing he was about to witness the exposure of the biggest lie of our marriage. I felt trapped. Sophia was in my arms, Michael was staring at me expectantly, and Tyler was waiting for me to acknowledge him. I had run out of ways to avoid this moment. All my careful planning, all my strategies for keeping my past separate from my present had failed. Here was my son, sitting in my living room, about to destroy everything I had built with the truth I had been so desperate to hide. The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken truths and impending revelations. I could feel my heart pounding so hard I was sure both Michael and Tyler could hear it. This was the moment I had been dreading for 13 years, the moment when my past would catch up with my present and destroy everything in between. I told Michael we needed to talk privately, but Tyler spoke up before I could figure out how to handle this. He said he didn't want to cause any problems, he just wanted to meet his birth mother. He explained that he knew I had given him up when I was young, and he wasn't angry about it. He just wanted to see me. The words hung in the air like a bomb that had just detonated, and I watched Michael's face change as he processed what Tyler had just said. Birth mother. The two words that would end my marriage and change all of our lives forever. Michael's face went completely blank. He looked at Tyler, then at me, then back at Tyler. I could practically see him doing the math. Tyler was 13, which meant I would have been 16 when I had him. Michael had known me since I was 24. I had been lying to him for our entire relationship. Michael repeated the words birth mother quietly, and Tyler nodded. He explained that Jessica had given birth to him 13 years ago in Kansas, that he was adopted by Robert and Amanda Williams, who had been great parents, but that he always wanted to meet me and thank me for giving him such a good life. Michael sat down heavily in his chair. He stared at me for a long moment, and I could see him processing everything. All my deflections about my past, my reluctance to talk about having children, my mysterious anxiety during pregnancy. Michael asked if it was true, and I wanted to lie. Even in that moment, with the truth sitting in our living room, I wanted to find a way out. But Sophia was in my arms, and Tyler was looking at me with hope, and Michael deserved better than another lie. I said yes, it was true. Michael didn't say anything for a very long time. Tyler looked uncomfortable and started to stand up, saying maybe he should go and that he didn't mean to cause problems, but Michael told him firmly that he wasn't the problem. I was the problem. That's when I realized how angry Michael was. He wasn't just surprised or confused, he was furious. His voice was calm, but I could see the rage in his eyes. Michael said 13 years, that I had been lying to him for our entire relationship about having a child. I tried to explain, but Michael cut me off. He asked what I was going to explain. How I looked him in the eye every day for 5 years and lied. How I let him think he was going to be a first-time father when I had already done this before. How I made him feel crazy for wanting children when I had already given one away. I had never seen Michael this angry. He was usually so calm and reasonable, but now he was pacing around our kitchen like a caged animal. I said I was 16, that I was just a kid, that I made the best decision I could at the time. Michael said he wasn't angry about me having a baby at 16. He was angry about me lying to him about it for 5 years. He was angry that I let him go through Sophia's entire pregnancy thinking it was new for me. He was angry that I made him feel like an idiot for being excited about things I had already experienced. I said I wanted to tell him, but Michael asked when. When was I going to tell him? After Sophia graduated college? Never? I didn't have a good answer because the truth was, I probably would have never told him if Tyler hadn't found me. I said I was protecting our relationship, and I knew it would change how he saw me. Michael said I was damn right it changed how he saw me. It changed everything. Our entire relationship was built on lies. Everything he thought he knew about me was fake. Michael told Tyler he could stay as long as he wanted, that this was Tyler's choice to make. Then he looked at me with such contempt that I felt physically sick. He said he was done, that he couldn't even look at me anymore. Michael told me he was filing for divorce, that he would fight for custody of Sophia, and that I had destroyed our family with my lies. Michael walked out of the house that day and never came back. He sent movers for his things while I was at work, and his lawyer served me with divorce papers a week later. The divorce was brutal. Michael's attorney painted me as a pathological liar who had deceived her husband about fundamental aspects of her identity. They argued that if I could lie about having a child for 5 years, I couldn't be trusted to make decisions about Sophia's welfare. I lost everything. Michael got primary custody of Sophia, and I got supervised visits twice a month. The judge said my pattern of deception showed poor judgment and that Sophia needed stability above all else. Tyler stopped coming around. He felt guilty for destroying my marriage, but I could see the disappointment in his eyes every time he looked at me. Now I'm alone and wondering where everything went wrong. Michael remarried last month. I saw the photos on social media before I blocked him. Sophia looked so happy in her flower girl dress, calling her stepmother Mama Rachel in all the captions. The life I threw away is continuing beautifully without me, and I have no one to blame but myself. Last week at the grocery store, I met this guy named David, who seemed really interested when I told him I was recently divorced and new in town. He asked me out for coffee this Saturday, and when he mentioned wanting kids someday, I just smiled and said that sounded wonderful. After all, everyone deserves a fresh start, right?